Shalom and good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcasting to you from Jerusalem. And in today's headlines, police on horseback charge hundreds of Ethiopian Israeli protesters in central Tel Aviv as an anti-racism protest descends into one of the most violent demonstrations in Israel's history. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warns of dangers imposed by the Islamic Republic of Iran, which repeatedly calls for the annihilation of the Jewish state. The United Nations holds consultations on Syria in a bid to restart a political dialogue that would end the four-year-old war. Hundreds of Israeli Jews of Ethiopian origin blocked a main Tel Aviv intersection yesterday, stepping up anti-racism protests triggered by a video clip that showed last week policemen shoving and punching a black soldier. The executive director of Tebeka, an organization that promotes equality and justice for Israelis from Ethiopian descent, said the community had been shocked by the recent incident.
We have a saying, the straw that broke the back of the camel was the incident that happened last Sunday, where an IDF soldier of Ethiopian origin was brutally beaten by two police officers for nothing wrong that he's done, and therefore all of these people you see, many of them have gone through this kind of police violence against them.
Police who diverted vehicles away from one section of the road did not immediately confront the protesters, but a few hours into the protest, police on horseback charged the hundreds of Ethiopian protesters in central Tel Aviv as the anti-racism protest descended into one of the most violent demonstrations in Israel's history. Demonstrators overturned a police car and threw bottles and stones at officers in riot gear at Rabin Square in the heart of the city. Police used forceful measures to disperse the crowd, including stun grenades and water cannons, turning the traditional site of peaceful demonstrations in Tel Aviv into something resembling a war zone. According to an MDA report, 56 police officers were injured, as well as 12 protesters, and damage was caused to local stores and police equipment. In other news, Israel announced a decision in which it will return 15 fishing boats seized from Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. The move is the latest measure in which the Jewish state tries to shore up the coastal enclave's shattered economy. The small motor-powered vessels had been confiscated over the past 2 years by Israel's Navy to prevent smuggling attempts which supply the Islamist Hamas, which controls the Gaza Strip, with weapons. Israel has accused the boat operators of violating the 11 kilometers fishing zone it enforces as part of the blockade. In recent months, Israeli authorities have similarly revived some commerce across the Gaza border, including Palestinian imports of farm equipment and exports to Israel of vegetables and fruit. In a statement, the Israeli military described the return as part of the steps being taken to assist the residents of the Gaza Strip. Now to other regional matters. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in remarks to the Washington Institute for Near East Policy on its 30th anniversary, reiterated the dangers imposed by the Islamic Republic of Iran, which repeatedly calls for the annihilation of the Jewish state. The Israeli leader also reiterated his position regarding the nuclear negotiations between Iran and the P5+1, the United States, Russia, China, France, Britain, and Germany, and stressed that a final deal would endanger the state of Israel as well as the entire world.
The Iranian regime proudly proclaims its hatred for the United States and Israel. It repeatedly threatens to annihilate Israel. This month, Iran's so-called moderate president presided over a military parade punctuated by cries of "Death to Israel, death to America." Iran is hosting yet another international competition of cartoons denying the Holocaust. Yet Iran doesn't just talk the talk, it walks the walk. It builds up terrorist bases along 3 of Israel's borders, in Lebanon and Gaza, and now on the Syrian Golan. It arms terrorists with thousands of rockets and missiles to be fired at our citizens. Israel simply cannot afford to let Iran obtain the capability to follow through on its genocidal designs. The international community cannot let Iran's aggression in the region, in Lebanon, in Iraq, in Syria, in Yemen, and elsewhere, continue under the protection of an Iranian nuclear umbrella. And the international community cannot afford to let the planet's foremost sponsor of terrorism have nuclear capabilities with which to terrorize the entire world. Preventing Iran from being able to build nuclear weapons is the foremost challenge of our generation. Unfortunately, the Lausanne Framework fails to meet this challenge, and if it will be realized, it will make the world a much more dangerous place. But it's not too late. Countries around the world must have the courage and the resolve to hold out for a better deal, one that will actually do the job of blocking Iran's path to the bomb. Now, there are those who say that the Lausanne Framework will make Israel safer. As the Prime Minister of Israel, I can tell you categorically, this deal will endanger Israel, big time. But it's not just Israel that will be endangered. The Middle East and the entire world will be threatened. A better deal is necessary. A better deal is possible. A better deal must and can be achieved. But if not, no deal is better than this bad deal.
Now, Israel is not the only country worried about Iran's regional aspirations. Arab foreign ministers of Gulf states arrived in Saudi Arabia to prepare for an expected meeting of the Gulf Cooperation Council leaders from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, and the United Arab Emirates, which would be held on the 13th of May in Washington in the presence of United States President Barack Obama. The primary focus of the meetings are increasing concerns by Sunni Arab states on Iran's nuclear program and developments in Yemen, where Iranian-backed Houthi rebels have seized most of the country. The oil-rich Gulf Arab countries are close allies of the United States, but have had differences with Washington over Iran's nuclear program, the American policy in Syria, and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Saudi Arabia sees Iran as its main rival in the region and fears a nuclear agreement would leave a door open for Tehran to develop a nuclear weapon, or would ease political pressure on it, giving it more space to back Arab proxies opposed by Saudi Arabia and its Sunni Muslim allies. Now to Israel's war-stricken neighbor Syria, expectations regarding an UN-backed consultation on Syria, which began today in Geneva, are viewed by both organizers and attendees with strong pessimism, as the four-year war continues to claim thousands of lives with battles raging across the country.
Expectations are low. These are low-key, low-profile consultations, and they're not being held at presidential level, they're being held at the working level. Come and tell us where you think we stand and how we can move forward. On the contrary, I think at this level, it is most likely that results can be achieved in terms of specifying the road ahead and how we can get there. We face millions of refugees, hundreds of thousands killed and many, many more injured, and we cannot sit back and wait. This is an effort by the Secretary General of the United Nations and his Special Envoy on Syria to revive the political process, to see how we can move forward, if at all, on getting to the point of a political transition.
The UN's Syria envoy, Staffan de Mistura, has invited Syria's government and opposition groups, as well as major powers and regional players, for separate talks in Geneva, which should last between 6 to 4 weeks. Iran had reportedly been invited to, for the first time, to partake in the consultations on the Syrian conflict. Thank you for watching us. Keep praying for the peace of Israel and the peace of Jerusalem. I'm Jonathan Hassan. Have a Erev Tov and Shavua Tov. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time.